You're listening to the Successors podcast with Tara Oosterhuis on RealAgriculture.com.
Okay, folks, it's time for episode 3 of the Successors podcast. I'm your host, Tara Oosterhuis. I am so happy to be back here with you all, wherever you are listening. If you happen to be listening to this from the combine, no matter your yields, please be safe. It's that time of the year when everything is happening at once. Just don't forget you are an important part of the operation as well. On that note, I'm going to bring in today's guest, who is on a rain delay in the middle of harvest in one of the worst droughts in recent history. Seems about par for the course. Guys, I promise I'm not going to be this negative throughout the whole podcast. But anyways, today's guest is Konschuh. She's a grain farmer near Cluny, Alberta, as well as a director on the Alberta Wheat Commission. How's it going today?
Really good, Kara. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, for sure. Happy to have you along for the ride. So before we get into the nitty gritty here, tell me a bit about your operation. What do you guys have going on there?
Yeah, sure. So my farm is called Generation Land and Grain Company Limited. So we're a dry land grain farm. We're located about 45 minutes east of Strathmore. And we grow wheat, barley, canola, and yellow peas. And actually, one cool thing that we've done the last few years. My mom has actually started a cut flower business called Blue Eggs and Bloom. So that's been a fun sort of side project that she's led and that the rest of us sort of support her on. So that's been really good too.
I know one of the things that has always kind of interested me is getting involved with a commodity board. It's something that I think often as a young farmer, a young person in the industry, you're not quite sure what that process looks like and when you can actually join those boards. You know, it's traditionally, I know this isn't the case anymore, but traditionally it can be kind of a old boys club and you're not sure where you fit in. So do you want to start with telling me a bit about that process?
Oh, absolutely. It's such a good question. So I think whether you're a farmer that's interested in serving on a board, I think it's good to figure out the ways to get engaged and to sign up for all the information coming out of all the commissions across, I guess, whatever your province is. So that would be my first tip would be to make sure that you are signed up with all the communications that come out of these organizations. So the newsletters and the email blasts. The Alberta Wheat and Barley Commission also put out a magazine called Grains West. And then there's also Team Alberta. So there's lots of things to get acquainted with, and that would be a really good first step. And then, of course, a thing that happens with the commissions is that there's a lot of work to do, and not always enough bodies to do that work. So if someone was interested in getting involved, I would say the next thing you should do is find your regional meeting that happens in the fall time, typically after harvest. So sometime in November in your region, there'll be a regional meeting. A great time to come out and learn what the commissions have been up to, meet the people who serve in your region and chat them up, because whether you end up serving on a board or sort of serving as a regional rep, it's really good to know those people, because when you're having issues, give them a call and they're your line straight into the organization. So those would be my two big tips to sort of get started to, kind of get acquainted with what goes on in the commission world.
And what was that process like for you personally? As you said, there's so many different ways to kind of go about and do it, but what made you kind of take that first step and decide that's what you wanted to do?
So I was actually in the network of the commissions because I worked for one of those organizations. So I filled a mat leave. I was the research manager for about a year. And so I sort of got to know what it was all about from the staff level. So then once I decided to go farming full time with my family, I was in their network. So they were thinking, well, we need a director in this region and we know Hannah, so we're going to ask her if she wants to run. So it's kind of a unique situation in terms of how I came to be a director. And to be honest, it was like a crash course in how it all works. So this is, how the money comes in, this is how all the work gets done. And so it kind of gave me an advantage that way. So I wouldn't have been able to sort of jump in and be, so involved right off the hop had I not had those experiences. So yeah, that's kind of how it all went for me.
So now you mentioned coming back to the farm. You have experience outside the farm. You went on to even get your master's. Do you want to talk about what kind of you have for education and the process of coming back home?
Oh, sure, yeah. So I was in Saskatchewan for quite some time, actually, because I went out to Notre Dame College, south of Regina, for high school. I was a sporty kid, so that was a great place for me to go. And then I ended up at the U of S. So I did a Bachelor of Science in Agriculture, and then I went on to do a Master of Science in Soil Science, and sort of mixed into that timeline. I worked for Bayer Crop Science and Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada. So I had a really great educational experience. I had so many fantastic mentors and so many great experiences. And so I was actually, just listening to your last guest, Kara, I was actually a bit of a late bloomer when it came to coming back to my farm. So I was actually in my mid-20s before it really even crossed my mind as a potential next career move for me. I was kind of, on my career path. And at the time, with my husband, my now husband, we were, in Saskatoon doing our early career thing. So yeah, it was definitely a decision that I came to a little bit later than some. Do you have any siblings? I do. I have 2 older sisters. I'm the youngest of 3 girls. So was that ever something that, are they involved with the farm? Was that kind of an afterthought for you, or, you know what I mean? Yeah. So my 2 older sisters, they're not involved in the day-to-day operations of the farm, though they love the farm. My one sister actually lives out here as well. And so, we have a sort of a beautiful thing going on with all of us living here in our own dwellings together. And my oldest sister, she's actually a really talented musician. So it wasn't really in her path to go farming full time. So it was only ever just me that really had the potential to step in and be the successor, not to be too on the nose with your podcast, Kara. Did you ever feel pressure to come back to the farm? Was that something that you kind of felt since your older siblings weren't really involved? No, and I think about that a lot, actually. My parents are the furthest thing from providing pressure in any sort of sense. So I think that's probably why it took me until I was a little older to even have it cross my mind that it could be a career path for me. They always said, go out, do your thing, get your education. And so I think once they realized that I was sort of at a transitional phase, I had finished a contract at Ag Canada actually before I made the move back to Alberta. And I think they sort of saw that as a window to say, if there's any potential for her to join us to farm, it's going to be now. So there was definitely no pressure and a lot of discussion about what it would look like and what the potential was for us as a farm and for myself as an individual. And then with my husband, for us as a couple to join the farm. So yeah, it's kind of cool how that all happened. And I mean, I think sometimes it's interesting to bring, whether you're male or female, it doesn't matter, but to bring a partner back into the farm that's a process in itself sometimes. And I think even more so, especially if you didn't originally see that as a part of your path. What was that like, bringing your husband home? Yeah, it's a good question. And, I think we are able to do it because for a couple of reasons. We spent so much time, even before we started officially, legally farming together, on our succession plan. So we knew that because my husband and I essentially had our own careers, and because we have the backdrop actually of a failed transition that happened between my dad and my mom and his family farm. So those 2 things coupled together really made us focus on planning, talking, transition planning. And we got to that point before even realizing that we needed extra resources. So I was lucky, actually, the first couple of years I started farming, I got hooked up with Farm Management Canada. And so I joined a program that was just sort of helping younger farmers access information to do with transition planning, succession planning, will and estate planning, pretty much everything. So it was honestly the perfect timing because we were going through that stage. So that was really great. And then I would also say my husband is really easygoing. My dad and I, so the 3 of us are pretty, we run sort of the day-to-day of the farm together. But my husband is pretty easygoing. I don't fall too far from the tree. My dad and I can be kind of intense. And so that's sort of what makes it all work. So yeah, it goes, and I don't want to say that we're, it's all perfect and great every day, because it's not. But the reason that we're able to do this is because we started off with that, strong foundation, getting all the hard stuff out of the way.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes we all kind of focus on age when it comes to succession planning. I mean, I know there's been situations where, a farmer goes, okay, well, I'm looking at this age, so maybe I should be looking at retirement, and maybe my kids should be looking. And I think it's really just kind of important that you look at when it's ready for you, and to have that conversation early on.
Mm-hmm, totally. Because, I also have some farm families and farmers in my midst where the succession plan, or the attempt to transition to the next generation, did not happen till people were in their like 40s, like mid 40s, or B, it just did not go well. And those people are now, seeking out different careers. And maybe that was the best thing for those people anyways. But it's a really important process, and there's so much to dig into.
Now, I know there's obviously, like you said, you're kind of in still the beginning stages of your succession plan, but any recommendations for people trying to start that conversation if they're maybe having a hard time starting that conversation at home?
Yeah, again, fantastic question. I think trying to find some resources, and there are lots of resources out there now. I would say checking out Farm Management Canada first. There's a lot of good stuff there, specific to do with transition planning, and for both parties. So for the generation coming in and potentially the generation that wants to step away, lots of great resources there. Because it's pretty daunting to think like, all right, now we're going to farm, or now I'm going to retire. So finding some resources to get you started would be really important. And then, of course, if you need it, access a third-party expert of some kind. So whether that's a facilitator, your accountant, starting with your accountant, they might be able to either provide help or start you off on a path of finding some resources. So those are all things that we did that really helped us.
Well, and I know from my own experience, succession can be something that it can give you security, but it also can bring some anxiety in there too, because you go, oh my goodness, is this really what I want to do for the rest of my life? And you're really, right? Yeah. And it has to do with family, and it has to do with all that. So yes, I totally agree. What has it been like making decisions on the farm? With succession, there's kind of that transfer of, quote unquote, I don't want to say transfer of power, because that's not what it is, but decision-making changes as you kind of step into the roles. What's that process been like on your farm? Yeah,
so we kind of it was a little bit of trial by fire, like based on my experience and my husband's experience. We kind of just decided, like, this is what we're going to try to, quote unquote, manage on our own. And then eventually the four of us as a management team, my mom, dad, and my husband and myself working together, we kind of figured out where people's interests are and where our skills lie. So because we're not too big of an operation, we've been able to, just roll with that. So for the most part, everything that I manage day to day, or that is kind of that I get the last call on, it's something that I want to do and that I like to do. So one day when my parents decide that they do actually, want to stop working, if they'll be able to make that decision, they seem like it might be hard for them to totally step away. Then we'll have to sort of look at that again and say, well, I'll take over the stuff that, my dad was doing because he enjoyed it, and that sort of thing. So it was kind of, I hate to use the word organic in this sense, but it was sort of just like, what was a natural fit and what do you like to do? So for my dad, he's a numbers guy. He's a strategic business thinker, and he loves the markets. So he knows what's going on in whatever country and what they've, how much grain they've exported, what they aren't able to export, what their crops look like. He loves thinking that way. So he handles and likes to do a lot of the marketing. And of course, that's also an interest of mine. So I do a lot of that with him. But I think the benefit of that, and for me, my experience is agronomy and soil science and technical things. So I'm very, specific. I love going out to the field. So I think the benefit of doing the things that are sort of a natural fit for you or that you might, enjoy doing means they feel like less work sometimes. I mean, not every day is a good day. You can't love your job every day. But if it's something that, that you like to do and you enjoy, maybe it's something that allows you to, keep growing in that role and hopefully just do a good job of it.
And I think there's sometimes a bit of a fallacy, like people say, that old quote, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. And I think sometimes that can be daunting in itself. No matter what you do, sometimes there's going to be those days and you're just, that's how it's going to be. Do you want to talk about that process of sometimes having those rough days and what you might do to get through them and recognize that they're not going to last forever?
Yeah. And, I think in farming, I'm so glad you brought up that, classic line, because first of all, there's so many different jobs to do on a farm in order to make your farm go. And it's a long season, a long year. And so I would love to meet the saint that loves farming every day of the year. So, I just think that sometimes some jobs just have to get done and you literally just have to get through that to get to the next phase. And, we're having a really tough year this year. Of course, Carrie, it's a pretty widespread drought. And I'm in an area that was pretty hard hit for lack of moisture, and we're all of our acres are dry land. So a lot of the jobs this year are, we just got to get through this and move on to the next phase. And I think just your foresight that that, farming goes with the seasons and there is going to be another season. And again, it's just another, fantastic time to mention that there's resources out there for people. So whether that's, getting someone to help you, look at your finances and decide what needs to happen before next year. And of course, accessing an organization like RealAgriculture, who's there to help you with your, mental health when you're going through tough times. Because of course, this has been a tough year for so many people. So.
Oh, totally. And there are professionals out there to help you. So I know if anyone is listening this year or any year and they're having troubles, struggling, please reach out to those that are professionally trained to help you. And they really, really can help. But anyways, moving on now. So working with a family, it sometimes can be tough to kind of, I guess, make that line between business and family. What do you guys do on your farm to kind of draw that line? Do you sit down for that formal business meeting?
Oh, yeah, we do. We take the formal meeting approach, and we used to kind of do it on a set schedule. So we would say once a week management meeting. We keep our employees busy for a couple hours, and then we go up to the office. We actually make sure that we don't sit at the kitchen table. We go up to our office and we have, formal meeting in our office, which is a business setting. So that was actually a tip that my mom brought to our meetings that she learned from a conference, that, keep your kitchen table for, family time together and go have your business meeting somewhere else. So during the busy season, we tend to have those meetings as we need them. So if we haven't met in a while and there's a rain delay and, lots of things have happened and lots of things need to get done, one of us says, let's go have a meeting. And then we, set an agenda and hammer out whatever we need to talk about for the next hour or so. So it's pretty important because, again, we're all doing different things and managing different things. And sometimes you run into one person and sometimes you've been working on your own for 2 days. So it is really important to make sure that we communicate what's going on.
Absolutely. And now as you've mentioned, it's been a really tough year, but sometimes we have to celebrate the little successes. How do you guys celebrate the little successes on your farm?
We like to do a good family dinner. So we invite, my sisters and my one sister's partner out, and we have a barbecue. We might, pick up a really delicious dessert, and we just sit around and try to chill. So the thing that we know that we need to do better around here, all of us, is figure out how to rest and how to play better, because, we live where we work. You walk out. Even when I get up in the morning, I'm thinking about the first things I have to do. So we're really good at those, sort of mini celebrations, but something that I think we can do better. It's a goal of ours, is to figure out how to rest and play better.
Is that maybe a message you'd send to somebody listening, is taking that time?
Oh, absolutely. For sure. I think it took us probably too long to figure that out. So yeah, when you have the chance to just, do something fun and not think about your business for a few hours, yeah, absolutely take the chance. Cause it'll make you better at what you're doing, right? You come back with a fresh brain and rested body. So
okay, so I gotta ask, as a busy person yourself, as you've been involved, like you said, in commodity boards and different aspects of the farm, a part of being able to do all those things is to be organized. Now, everyone seems to have their different system of organization. What do you do to keep yourself organized and to prioritize and know where your attention is needed?
Well, I'm a list person. I always have a list going, whether it's in the office or on my phone. And again, it is just about, picking off the things that need to get done now, the things that need to get done next week versus end of the month. And of course, the weather dictates a lot of what is going on. So right now we're on a bit of a rain delay from harvest. So yeah, just working away at the to-do list on things that are less pressing. And then, as soon as we obviously can get back in the field, that's what we do. So yeah.
You bet. Okay. Any words of advice you want to give to our listeners on anything we've talked about?
Yeah. Well, I guess I would say if you have any interest in getting involved in commodity boards, no matter what your commodity is, I would say, yeah, check out that organization. And I would love to talk to anybody who's interested. And yeah, and I think if you're someone that's at the start of your transition plan or your succession plan with your farm, I would say absolutely access some resources if you need them, and best of luck with that process.
Okay, great. Well, that's it for today. So thank you very much for joining me, Hannah. I'm sure our audience will appreciate your honesty and all your advice. I know I sure do. It was great having you on the show, and I'm sure we'll talk to you again soon.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Kara.
And thanks for all of you that tuned into episode 3 of The Successors. If you have any questions, comments, feedback, maybe you even know someone you think would make a great guest, get a hold of me. I'm always open to new ideas. You can do so by sending me a message on Twitter at Kara Oosterhuis or via email at KOOSTERHUIS@realagriculture.com. Until next time, stay real, and thanks for listening to The Successors.